Okay. So welcome everyone to this event on democratizing climate finance. We are lucky to have a wonderful speaker today, Jackie Logan with Raise Green. So welcome, Jackie.
Thank you.
Before getting started, I just wanted to say a couple of words about Terra.do. And who is putting on this event. I am actually a community ambassador for Terra.do. I recently completed a 12-week immersive fellowship on understanding the root causes of climate change and exploring all the different solutions to this problem, this global problem that we have now, which many call the poly crisis. It is a program that taught me a lot. I just want to say, sort of put in a good word for Terra.do, that it really helped me feel less anxious about climate change because I learned about all the solutions that are out there. And I encourage you, if you're thinking about doing any online courses in climate change, please do think about Terra.do. I'm going to put a few links into the chat so that you can have access to those at any time. Just a second in the main chat. All right, here we go. There are also, that's the one course I wanted to mention is the 12-week Learning for Action in Climate Change course. And I can personally attest that it was a really transformational course for me. There's also a couple of courses I wanted to mention that are both 8 weeks. One is the Corporate Sustainability Accelerator, and the other is the Software for Climate program. Now, those programs are available via the links that I just popped into the chat. And I encourage you to look at those to learn more. I just wanted to start off also by saying that my name is Abigail Wilson. I am a community ambassador for Terra.do, as I mentioned earlier. And I recently got into the climate change space sort of out of necessity. I was working for a USAID contractor, working on conflict mitigation and youth empowerment in Africa. And with the events of 2025, I've had to pivot my career, and I'm very much excited to be working on climate change now. I'm especially interested in opportunities for solar power in the developing world. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest today, who is Jackie Logan of Raise Green. So Jackie actually co-founded Raise Green in 2019. This is a regulated investment crowdfunding portal, and it's dedicated to opening up access to capital for and investment into climate initiatives. From a solar project on a school to new climate tech startups. In December 2024, Raise Green strategically joined forces with Honeycomb Credit, which is a larger platform focused on small businesses and strengthening communities. Jackie has 25 years of experience in capital markets, and she's had roles in institutional sales on the trading floor, all the way to compliance in private wealth. In her last role at Goldman Sachs, Jackie realized that we need significant private capital moving into direct climate solutions. And Raise Green, along with Honeycomb, seek to solve this problem. Jackie is a New York City native. She has a BA from Williams College in chemistry, and she graduated with honors from the Wharton School with an MBA. So with that, I will hand it over to you, Jackie, for your presentation. But just one housekeeping note is that if anyone has questions, we'll have a time for Q&A after the presentation. Please put your questions using the Q&A function on the chat, or just raise your hand during the Q&A session, and I'll make sure to call on you. So with that, Jackie, over to you. Looking forward to your presentation. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you, and thank you for everyone joining live today, and for those that will, listen in the future. I just fundamentally believe we all have a part to play here. We can make a difference, and a piece of that is actually knowing what's going on out there, and that a lot of things are in your reach. So just thrilled just by being here. It's moving us towards solving the climate problem. So thanks for everybody joining, and Abby, thank you for hosting, and Tara Du for having me. So I start with this opening slide. Finally, an opportunity to invest in businesses and projects that you actually care about and believe in. You're seeing here on the front cover a small business that raised on our platform over $100,000 from 117 people to build out their fermentation business. And I'm going to try to move the slides. Why don't they want to move? Hold on. What do you think? Stop sharing, you are sharing. It's not letting me move the slide ahead. Oh, there it goes. I must have not. Okay, disclaimer. This content this is for information only. Nothing in here is financial, etc. advice. We're not trying to solicit anything, although I will be very excited about the work that we're doing now, Raise Green on Honeycomb together. And always know that if you are investing, there's always risk associated with it, and you should get good advice. And that's the disclaimer. So we're going to cover a few things today, but honestly, there is so much to talk about in this space. But what I hope for you all to walk away with is just understanding what we're doing at Honeycomb Credit / Raise Green now that we're one organization. And it's a powerful tool out there. And we want as many people to know that, number one, we are a place that you can go if you're doing anything in the climate solution space and you're looking to raise capital. We should probably talk. And then separately, if you are looking to invest directly into climate solutions, to pop on our fully online platform and poke around and see what are some of the offerings that are out there. Does something grab you? And for as little as $100, you can today take climate action by investing directly in one of these projects or companies. And this is, you'll see some little snippets of examples of businesses that have raised capital in the photos. So I have to move this thing here. So Honeycomb Credit, and as I said, we are now merged as one platform, so I'll generally refer to us as Honeycomb Credit. Or businesses they believe in. Again, Katerina raising capital for her zero waste grocery store. Another example, Compostable LA raised 60,000 from 77 local investors. And her exclamation is, I don't just have a bank, I have 77 folks that are looking to support what I'm doing. And I have some other great stories about that. So let me scroll back, and I'm going to start with, how did Raise Green come about? How did I get involved, et cetera, et cetera? As Abby said, I was, working at Goldman. I actually was watching the development of some of these ESG strategies, which were, great and amazing. This was back in 2016 and 17. And, I was looking at what data is available, like how can they quantify impact if I put my dollars there? And generally, these were investments, right, in big public companies or public municipalities, et cetera, et cetera. And I saw this big wave of interest from from private capital, individuals looking to do something with impact around climate and other things as well. And I just decided that, you know, I was very interested in seeing an opportunity for this big interest of private money to go directly, boots on the ground, smaller to medium-sized type projects and businesses, and when you think of America and, it's small businesses, it's the folks doing things in local communities that at the end of the day bring the health and well-being of our economy. And so I really wanted to take my 25 years of experience and now 30, and get capital moving directly into climate. But then but how? How do I figure this out? And this is a lesson for everybody who's interested in climate. You got to get out there and just go to events, start talking to people, and you are going to be just amazed. Number one, the community wants to connect people because we're all rowing in the same direction. We all know that the time clock is ticking, and we just, everybody who's interested to get on board, let's connect and let's move people forward. So get out there, talk to people. And that's exactly what I was doing. And in that journey, I went to a talk on blockchain and climate. There was an open seat, at the lunch table. I sat down, started to talk to the fellow next to me. One thing led to another. And within a few months, I had joined up and I became a co-founder with that fellow and another fellow at another table. And we came together and co-founded Raise Green. And the purpose of Raise Green was very, very simple. At its very highest level was to get more money moving directly into climate and give more people a chance to get involved. And here are some of the things that we saw that we wanted to attack. Number one, financing pathways we saw for solar projects. There was a pathway actually for residential. There was a pathway for big, big, big scale, but in the middle, think a solar array on top of a school, very difficult to get those projects done. And a small percent of rooftops across the US actually had solar on it. And we also saw that climate startups lacked access to capital. Funding from VCs was open to a very small percent. And by the way, even a smaller percent of women and minority-led firms. And we also saw that there was a growing interest to invest in sustainable investments. We knew that, on the other hand, but 9 out of 10 Americans were not able to invest in these small kinds of projects because of the way capital was raised for those. It wasn't available to them. And then everyday folks we saw are joining climate marches, and we at the end of the march, it's like, what do you do? And so we wanted to bring that together in Raise Green. And just at that time, a brand new regulation had just been brought out to the marketplace by the SEC called the regulation crowdfunding. And we saw that as a solution for us because of the nature of that regulation was specifically meant for small to medium-sized businesses and projects to raise capital from everyday folks. And they would do it with a very special organization called the Funding Portal, which was registered with the SEC, an expert in this regulation, in order to facilitate in a compliant manner the creation of equity and debt securities and the availability for you, me, everyday folks to come in and invest in those relatively through a very simple process. So we said, we're going to hone in on that. We're going to get our registration from the SEC. We're going to become a funding portal, and we're going to get out there and we're going to start to raise capital, work with folks that are trying to do something in the climate solution space and help them raise capital and open it up to their loyal following to come in and invest, as well as anybody across the United States. Meanwhile, Honeycomb Credit saw that in local communities, 40% there was a drop in community banks, around 40% after the 2008 financial crisis. So where does a small business, and it could be a sustainable business like you saw in some of those pictures, where do they go to borrow if their community bank isn't there? And in addition, we saw that the SBA loans had dropped dramatically. So again, how to deal with that? Well, Honeycomb was co-founded by a fellow named George Cook. He is a sixth generation community banker family. 135 years, they've been a community bank in a small town in Appalachia. And he saw the disappearance of the community bank. He understood the importance of it to the health and well-being, to, growing small businesses across communities. And just at the time he got out of business school, around there, regulation crowdfunding comes into being, and he saw this as the way to now, okay, if the community bank can't invest in the community because they're disappearing, maybe the community who loves that business, who knows those folks, they've been in the community forever, or can come in and invest in that community. So he became a crowdfunding portal. His focus, as I said, was more on the small business side. Meanwhile, Raise Green is growing, focused on climate solutions. And as I said, coming out of the Jobs Act from 2012, took the SEC 4 years. They created regulation crowdfunding, and which is really an avenue to issue real equity and debt, just like the big companies do, IBM and, Microsoft. They issue stocks and bonds in the marketplace. They are doing that in what's called the public markets. It's a very well vetted market. You got to be a big company to do that, all kinds of stuff. But now small businesses can raise capital and open it up to the general public to invest in quite a similar fashion, but on a much smaller scale. So what is regulation crowdfunding? First of all, as I said, it created the funding portal, and there are about 90 of them across the United States. Every year there's a few, and then some drop out, some come in. There are, a handful that are active. Many of them are not active. Some of them are general, and they, whether it's a candy business or a, climate tech, or whether it's real estate, they could do all of those things. We happen to be more focused, a little bit more of a niche player, if you will. And, and so again, as I said, the great thing about this is securities, and this is real financial investments, right? So securities can be sold to anyone. As long as you're 18 years and older, you can come in and jump on the platform, open up an account in a few minutes, and you can click invest and invest in something. Regardless of your income and net worth, you can do that up to $2,500 a year. If you are an accredited investor, you can invest unlimited amounts. If you are not accredited, there's some income and net worth tests to go above 2,500. That's all embedded in the platform. I can talk to you more about it, but there's a lot of flexibility to invest a lot more than $2,500. And it's all automatic on the platform. And for issuers, companies or entities that are looking to raise capital, the maximum is 5 million they can do per year. But if you think about, there are a lot of small to medium-sized projects that can get done within that. And this doesn't have to be all the capital they're raising. Can be just a piece of what they're doing. They can raise capital still from a bank. They can do other things. But hey, you can also open up investment to the crowd and raise capital from your loyal fans, and also bring in new fans by raising capital on a platform, because we will expose you, anybody raising capital, to our existing investor base as well. It's got a lot of flexibility. You know, when you go to a bank, they go to you and they say, hey, here are the terms. This is what it is. Or if you go to a VC, they're the ones that come and say, these are the terms. But on crowdfunding, you actually can set the terms. There's much more flexibility around that. So as you can imagine, you know, there's a project and it's not generating revenue at the beginning, but it could here, and it's in an LMI community. Well, maybe we can structure a debt offering that can kind of help and make that work, and then explain it to investors, and they can take the opportunity to choose to invest or not. But there's a lot of flexibility in how you structure it, and it tends to be founder friendly. And the idea is it's inclusive and supportive. We had one issuer on Raise Green who raised capital. She was suspect about what it would mean to bring in outside investors to her company. She said that, of course, with all the rumblings of the big beautiful bill and the loss of support to the green banks and all these kinds of things that is going on right now, she said that the bright shining moment for her has been she raised 160,000 on Raise Green for her, it's a flood, water retention business related to that. And she said it's those 35 investors who have come to her and said, hey, we can connect you to this. We'll do a tree planting, at my legal firm. And she said it's just been amazing because the folks that are coming in, they want to see you successful. They care because it's personal for them. So just a couple of words about what Honeycomb Credit, if you come to a crowdfunding platform like Honeycomb Credit, you're going to invest in securities or you're going to raise capital. Look, number one, this isn't the S&P 500. At this time, it's not your 401k. These investments, they're not going to be traded on the stock market at this point. They're illiquid securities, right? They're private investments into private companies. They're not mutual funds, index funds, retirement accounts. We believe there's no impact washing because you're going to actually invest directly into whatever that is. It's a project. It's a small business that's doing XYZ. It's not at some high level here. And a lot of times it can be in your neighborhood or it can be in somebody else's neighborhood, and you can touch and feel it. And again, the return is not just financial, it's personal. As I said, it's a way to put your money directly into climate solutions or small businesses for a financial return. I just want to do one thing for y'all. Crowdfunding is a generic term. We use it for a lot of things. So I think of crowdfunding when it comes to money transfer in three ways. One is donation-based. Example is GoFundMe. And then there is something called rewards-based, which is like Indiegogo or Kickstarter, where let's say it's a new business, they're trying to get off the ground, they're looking for some early adopters, and maybe you get a free t-shirt or, free first product, but it's not a financial investment per se. And then there is regulated investment crowdfunding. That is what we're talking about. This is investment in a note or a stock or some instrument like that with the expectation of a financial return, as well as impact or whatever else that's coming along with it. And as I said, we are the marketplace. We're bringing together folks like that are interested in investing and folks that are looking to raise capital, doing something either in their local community. And as I said, from a Raise Green perspective, we are focused on climate. I spend my whole day talking to folks doing amazing things. And Abby, I think we talked about this before we jumped on, just how when you have a chance to get out there and talk to people in the climates that are working on climate solutions, there is so much going on out there. I am so hopeful that we are going to crack this nut, regardless of the lack or or existence of, federal funding. We need as much of that as we can, but there are so many people driving towards this. And the great news is that there are vehicles like what we are to move capital as well at very early stages or middle stages. So, and as I talked about, one of the wonderful benefits about raising capital in this manner is you connect with real people, and you can then create a very loyal following. And many times issuers come back multiple times and people reinvest. So as I said, investment opportunities are as little as $100. It can be straightforward debt. It could be an equity type. It could be a stock. It could be something called a SAFE. It could be a convertible note, which has equity touch points. We also have something called a revenue share, which is, businesses that are more seasonal or expect their revenue to start in the future. This is more of a debt-like note where it's going to, when the revenue starts coming in, you're, as an investor, are going to start to get paid. So Honeycomb Credit, just where are we now? As Abby said, in December, Honeycomb acquired Raise Green. So now we are fully integrated. And as a integrated platform, we have 25,000 folks that are investors on our platform. And when a new offering comes up, we advertise to all of them and let them know that, hey, new offerings up on the platform. And we've done to date about 575 plus offerings as a group. So we know how to get these, we know how to get somebody who wants to raise capital through the process with as little wasted time and excess use, any costs on their part, in a compliant manner, to open them up to the public. And we've moved approximately 50 million, probably more at this point, across the platform into small businesses and climate solutions. And, together we've been around 7 years. Honeycomb just celebrated its 7th birthday. And we're in it. We firmly believe in this. In March, Honeycomb also acquired another business called IFW. What's super interesting about this is they bring to us actually a rewards-based crowdfunding outfit, because many times folks come to us and they're too early on to raise capital, in the form of securities. You do have to have certain things in line. You have to be a real business. And folks that are earlier on, we now can help them. And in addition, we're building a corner for grants so that we can also support in a grant making capability, working with larger organizations to funnel them through us, because we know grants are important. I will be sharing that information, with Teradu as it's getting scoped out now. And in addition, we have courses on general business so that people know how to organize in order to get them to the point where they can actually raise equity and debt on the under regulated crowdfunding. So continuing to build out our own ecosystem. So let's look at some case studies. So here's an example of an organization that, and this is a real impact investment, right? So on our platform, you're going to see a range of things from, this is totally, it's a balance of, there's the potential for a very high financial return all the way, which could have a lot of impact, or, it has some impact in the climate space, all the way to like, this is very, very heavy on the impact side. And we have investors across the spectrum. They, some lean more one way and are interested in more of those kinds of investments. And some lean heavy more on the impact, and some do both. There's a place for everybody. This example is, it took 2 years to organize this. This was a solar project. It has been built now. And it was a small nonprofit green bank in Maryland that wanted to do a solar array on top of a school in East Baltimore. And that solar array was going to generate electricity for up to 175 families in the surrounding area to that school. And it would be to 100% LMI families. So normally when what's called a community solar project, which is a solar project that is then going to give solar to, 50 to 100 folks in the area, typically 20%, 30%, maybe 40% is dedicated to LMI communities. This project was the first of its kind to be 100% LMI. The project had very little in it. Everything had to stack very carefully. There wasn't an extra dime because of the nature of what this project was trying to accomplish, and ultimately was to give folks a 25% discount on the electricity that was being produced from that solar array from their normal bill. So if they're paying 20 cents a kilowatt hour, they're going to be paying, somebody do the math for me, is that 15 cents a kilowatt hour? So a dramatic reduction for folks. So anyhow, so working with this green bank, they hobbled together a bunch of some foundation money, some grant money, some this, but they were missing $370,000 to make this project happen. The total project was about 2 million. And so they came to Raise Green. We put together a debt note with them. This one is quite long. It's 15 years at 5.5%. It's not a sexy rate, but this penciled the project, and it filled the gap in order to get this project done. Not only did they get they filled the 370,000 from, I think it was somewhere under 100 investors. They actually got more interest. We had to turn people away. But this is an example. This project is now up, running, producing electricity, and families are getting discounted rates. This is something that we can do. We can make this happen as individuals. We can, receive a potential, a financial return, plus we can actually have a direct impact on watching a project get done. We also have, issuers on the platform that are well-known. The Connecticut Green Bank has actually just finished their 14th, actually this is old, 10th, it says, their 14th offering on our platform. They come back every quarter, they raise $350,000, and the purpose, they do one-year notes. The reason why they're doing it is not necessarily for them to raise that capital. It's really to open up investment to everyday folks. Because how would you get a chance to invest directly in a green bank and the work that they're doing in your state? So for this, they raised capital to fund energy efficiency projects for small businesses across the state of Connecticut. And they just completed their 14th offering. And they typically have somewhere between 90 and 100 investors. And then people come back and reinvest again. And this has actually been green bond verified by the big institutional green bank folks. This one, we already did this one. Here are a couple other examples. Block Power, home base here in New York. They do energy efficiency in urban communities. They just raised $156,000 on the platform. But in total, overall crowdfunding, they've probably raised anywhere from 3, 4, 5 million, to raise flexible capital to get their projects done. We did something for the Santa Fe Goat guys. They raised $55,000 in debt to get the resources to actually buy their goats. I mean, it's literally buy the goat, buy the pen, buy the et cetera, and they're up and running. And then Elmley Renewables, we did a, refinanced a solar project for them. But it's the gambit. We can do climate tech, you name it. And these projects they're up on the platform typically between 30 and 60 days for investment, and then they close. So who's an investor on Honeycomb? It's you, it's me, it's your community, anyone who's 18 years and older. We have investors from across all the 50 states. The one thing I want to say, if you're looking to raise capital, that is typically, you have to be a US entity. That's the regulation does state that. And I'm just going to click through this. This is a little bit about the vetting process. We go through a vetting process before you get up on the platform. We can talk a little bit more in detail about that if anyone has more questions about it. And then on our platform, any offering that is actually touches climate, because we do have a host of things with the small businesses, it's going to get a Raise Green tag. And that means it's gone through a couple of touch points here in terms of criteria, just to make sure that folks who are interested when they jump on Honeycomb Credit and really just want to focus on climate, they can find the Raise Green tag, and that'll take them directly to climate related solutions. We've got some challenges now. I think everybody is well aware that the new, not the Build Back Better, but the Big Beautiful Bill has really sliced out, really some of the tremendous tailwinds that we had in this industry coming out of the Biden era with the Inflation Reduction Act and, multiple aspects of that. We're going to move forward. I talk to, folks across the industry. People are not stopping doing what they're doing. Right now, there's a rush. I am hoping that you're going to see on our platform a lot of issuers shortly that are looking to lock in capital for projects that they have in their pipeline that they know they need to get going, because if they're going to capture some of the tax incentives that are being pulled away, they need to get their projects either 5% in the works, or they need to get them, within a certain time period, and that's short. Some people say by the end of the year, some people say by next July 4th of 2026. And then some projects are going to be rushing to get completely done, by 2027. But we're going to see folks coming to raise that capital now so that they can capture those incentives, because certain projects don't need those incentives to get done. They'll still get done. But many of the projects on nonprofits and, in LMI communities and these kinds of places, they're going to need those tax incentives in order to get those projects done. So a lot of those types of organizations who are focused on them, we're working closely with many of them to get them on our platform so they can raise that capital to lock in the projects in their pipeline now, so that they can get them done. And so we're very, very focused. In the meantime, the industry is adjusting, and we're going to continue the fight. And it just puts, everyday folks in a more important position to get involved, because we're going to need private capital now more than ever. And that's, I'll stop there and open for questions.
Thank you so much, Jackie. I'm feeling so hopeful after listening to your presentation. This year has been kind of nonstop bad news in the climate space, but I'm so happy that there's an avenue for individuals to invest in climate solutions like this. Sophia, would you like to come off mute and ask your question?
Hi, yes, sure. You mentioned that it's mainly for US companies and I guess investors too. I was just wondering if you have any Canadian equivalents. that I could, because I'm from Canada and I would like to also start investing in these type of projects that are doing good?
So fabulous question. Canada does have its own crowdfunding rules. And I can, if you give me your email, I'll come back to you with some information. But they do have a crowdfunding rule. I don't know, like, and I'm sure there's some crowdfunding portals out there. What I can tell you is I'm actually working with a Canadian company right now, but they are doing some US projects. And so therefore, and they're going to incorporate their US projects here. And so therefore they can raise capital under US Reg CF regulations. But I know that there is a crowdfunding there and I can try to help, connect you with a crowdfunding portal. I'll come back to you with that.
Okay, thank you.
Great. I have some questions, but I want to see who else has burning questions before I go. And feel free to just come off mute and ask.
And if
I
any-
have one question about just if you have any data about what kinds of companies have been successful raising, and if there are certain gaps that you see that you would love to see come onto your or in industries, or the kind of company that you would like to see on your platform.
Great question. So look, this is crowdfunding. And I would say, the companies and or the projects that are successful in raising capital, there are a couple of things. Number one, they can tell their story well. We as a funding portal, we have a customer success team and they're used to working with the folks that are raising capital and help them figure out their, some of the wording and some of those things. But the bottom line is the ability to tell your story and get people excited is incredibly important. So that's one of the things. The other thing about crowdfunding is that unlike you go to a bank, the bank's got the capital, right? They're the ones that worry about bringing in the capital in order to lend you the money. But in crowdfunding, you as someone, if, let's say it's project A coming to the platform to raise the capital, the folks involved in the project need to think about who in their community are they going to be reaching out to in order to bring to the platform. It is not set it and forget it. The idea around crowdfunding is, and some people call it community round, because you're really going first to your community and say, hey, we're doing this, come in, here's a link, jump on Honeycomb Credit, click this link, and you'll see all the information about my company and who we are, or my project, who we are, and there'll be a button to click invest, and then you can go ahead and invest. So you need to think about, are you into that? There are some folks that are not into that. They just don't want to be reaching out to their community to get people excited and involved. And reaching out is, it's basically building an email list, which is typically the most effective. Speaking at things and having a little social media and, letting them know what you're up to and asking them to come and support you. So those are like two big things that, folks that are excited to bring in their community, already have a community or want to develop a community to bring in, and folks that are good at telling their story. Also tend to be more successful in raising capital in this format. And I forgot the second question. It was, gaps.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Gee, I am interested in seeing, look, we want an array of issuances on the platform. And the reason why is because Raise Green actually originally started with just doing solar projects. We said, let's get that solar array on every single building across the United States and let that community open it up to everyday folks to come in and invest because they could do it on our platform. And what we learned is that we can't have just one way to attack it. Oh, okay, right now we got a problem with federal funding. So some of the residential solar projects are, dropping in their tracks, right? Because they can't get over the line at the moment. Well, you know what? There's the LA compostable, and I'm not recommending anything, of course, but there's a small business in the community that's actually started a biodigester and they are attacking it XYZ. So I think my point is that we want to support, I want to see a variety of folks on our platform. One is because investors, who knows what it's going to touch them, right? Because a lot of it is about the story and what you all care about. And we don't know which way, the winds are going to blow, and we really do need to be able to attack it. So we're open. We want to hear from everybody.
Thanks so much. I think there was another question. Okay, well, if not, I have a question to ask, and I was wondering, of all the types of projects that you fund, does Raise Green just work on projects that are taking place in the United States? Or would you also be open to funding organizations that are US based but working internationally?
So the answer is we have worked with folks that are doing projects. In fact, I'm working with an organization right now that their main operation is in the Dominican Republic, but their home base is here in the US, and they're raising capital out of their US entity, and it's a real entity. So for example, what the regulation won't allow is, oh, well, I'm a French company, everything is being done in France, or I'm in Nigeria and everything's being done. And I'm just going to set up a shell entity here in the US and I'm going to raise capital out of it. That is something that the regulation won't we won't allow that on our platform because it's against the spirit of the regulation. Because this was created in order for, it was really to grow jobs here in the United States. So the regulation's written around that, and that's the spirit of it. But as I said, if you've got, and we actually worked with an organization who they were an advisory and a platform that also did certain kinds of organized investments and things like that in Africa. And we were happy to raise capital for them. So it just got to have some roots here, though.
Totally makes sense. Thank you. Who else has questions for Jackie?
And the EU has a crowdfunding regulation, and it's going gangbusters. The UK has one as well. And we've had great relationship with some of the international crowdfunding portals because we've talked about how can we give our folks an opportunity to invest over there, et cetera. But as you can imagine, for retail investors, which are everyday folks, the regulators on both sides of everywhere want to be very careful and give the appropriate protections for those. So it makes it challenging to do this kind of cross-border thing with these types of small investments. But it is something that we're working on.
Thank you. Jackie, do you want to advance the slide so we can see your email address?
Oh, yes, sorry.
Great.
Jackie.Logan@honeycombcredit.com.
Perfect.
And anybody can email me anytime. Abby and I were talking about this. Look, we're all rowing in the same direction. If I can help, look, not everybody's right for our crowdfunding platform, but look, maybe I know somebody and connect you with some, like, who knows? And
Yeah.
I'm open to help in any capacity, and yeah, we got to pay it forward.
Wonderful, thank you. I see a question from Dinier Hernanda.
Yes, it's Dini. I thank you, Jackie, for sharing. I'm just curious. I'm based in Berlin, Germany, but I also have roots in Indonesia. And I know that we have some carbon projects, community driven mostly, really like big climate impacts, also a lot of co-benefits. But they have been like the feedback that I've received from them is that it's very hard for them to get into the big platform because of the hurdles, regulations, etc. So that's why, like, to me, it would be super interesting to kind of replicate what you were doing. That's why my question, what would you say, like, if you have to look back in the first, like, what would you have done differently, maybe from where you build it? And if someone wants to build it in a different market, what would you give them advice?
So you're talking about just this regulation crowdfunding, and which enables this kind of movement of capital. Is that what you mean, Didi?
Yes.
So first of all, I think that in the EU, and their Reg CF rule over there actually enables the entire EU to work under one regulations. I don't think they require you to be the organization to be domiciled in the EU. So now the issue is, and you're in Germany, so
Yes.
I
But
would.
I have roots in Indonesia, so my thinking is not necessarily to build something in the EU, but in Indonesia where we don't have this access to capitals that much. So yeah.
Well, you know, this regulation, I mean, this is really about who regulates the Indonesian, financial markets,
Got it.
and bringing this to them as a policy, and this originally, it was Congress who said, you need to do some things, SEC, to enable small business capital formation. We need to grow. That's where the jobs are. We need to grow jobs, et cetera. And so that agreement in our, congressional body, it became law. And so that's what pushed this to happen. So it's really, to actually create this kind of thing is really to go to, the folks that regulate, that, create the laws in Indonesia, and talk to them about what's happening here, and bring them the details of this regulation. It's not that complicated. Unlike many of our regulations, it's relatively simple. And I can connect you with the regulation itself and all those kinds of things. But in the meantime, if those projects are looking to raise capital in Indonesia, it doesn't mean that there might not be folks in the EU, for example, where Reg CF would allow those projects to actually raise capital from folks in the EU. I don't know if they're okay bringing folks in from Indonesia as well, but an investor is one of the largest impact-oriented crowdfunding platforms, and I think one of its main locations is in Germany. So that would be an amazing conversation for you to reach out to them and talk to them about what you'd like to accomplish, and see, just in terms of how do I get to it immediately versus, that will probably take a while. And in Indonesia to get some new regulation passed.
Got it. Thank you so much.
But I will drop, I will somehow get you a link to the regulation here, which explains exactly how this works, how, et cetera, and that send that right over to the folks in Indonesia who make the laws there, and see if they would be on board.
Cool. Thank you. Well, the issue with us, I mean, government is government, but Indonesian government is kind of special, and we've been pushing for having more regulation when it comes to climate financing and all of that stuff. And it always takes a while, bureaucracy, and we just had a new president, so that's also another thing. So that's why like the folks on the ground are looking for, okay, what are the things that we can build ourselves so that we can facilitate the capital flow without waiting around until government figure it out, because the need is there, market is there.
Well, as I said, I mean, in my little world, I can just say they may be able to raise capital in the EU using Reg CF. I'm sure there are other ways for projects on the ground in Indonesia, other avenues for private capital investment,
Yes.
not waiting around for the government. I just don't know. There got to be funds out there that care, that are, focused in Asia and etc.
Thank you. Should I send you an email or?
Absolutely.
Good, we'll do that.
Love to
Thank
hear
you.
from you, and I'll send you the regulation.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much. I think we're at time, but I really wanted to thank you, Jackie, for this amazing presentation. I feel so energized by knowing that this opportunity exists. And I really want to thank all the participants for your questions and listening, and all of you who are joining later and watching the recording. Thank you so much for being part of this. You've got Jackie's email address here for any follow-up questions. And I wish you all a wonderful day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.